There is nothing more precious than a baby's smile. While this beautiful boy was born healthy, a frightening number of his infant peers will be born premature and may not even see their first birthday.
For every 1,000 babies born, 6 babies die. That's nationally. In some Cleveland neighborhoods, that number is as much as 36.
Infant mortality is a death that occurs between a baby's first breath and when they turn 1. The disparity for Black babies in Ohio is undeniable, worse than many underdeveloped countries.
For every 1 white baby that dies in Cuyahoga County, 7 Black babies die.
Kristen Farmer is on the front lines of tackling this issue by creating Birthing Beautiful Communities, which is a group of doulas or birth workers that help at-risk pregnant women in some of the hardest hit areas of Cuyahoga County.
The consensus is generally that this is a poor Blacks problem, and that's not true. If you live in an affluent neighborhood and are African American, you still have the same risk of losing your child before the age of 1 if you lived in an impoverished neighborhood. A master's degree African American woman is still twice as likely to lose her baby than a white woman without a high school diploma.
Researchers are desperately trying to find the answer.
We don't know what's causing the disparity. Women of color at all education levels experience differential amounts and types of stress associated with living in our current society.
Farmer says, plain and simple, African American babies are dying as a symptom of racism.
There have been people in this country who have been historically deprived of opportunities and resources. And that has now manifested itself into the health issues in African American people, including infant mortality.
Racism, whether it's structural or interpersonal or internalized, is part of the problem. We've seen case after case where a woman of color has said, I'm having a problem, and the doctor doesn't hear them, or doesn't believe them, or poo-poos them in a way that leads to a negative outcome.
It's appalling and it's outrageous that our birth outcomes are the way they are.
When the Ohio Commission on Infant Mortality was created in 2014, Ohio was ranked 47th in the nation. Despite the state also being one of the top spenders for health care, the state has since moved up to 41st. However, the African American rate remains unbending. In the new March of Dimes report, even just the preterm birth rate for Black women is 47% higher than the rate among all other women.
One of the things that the Commission is committed to doing is really putting the money into the places that see the worst outcomes.
So the Commission created Senate Bill 332, which is not only aiding in data collection to figure out the correlation, but is also deploying health workers to women in need. That mission has proved successful for groups like Birthing Beautiful Communities.
We spend about 80 weeks with the families, so from early pregnancy to the baby is at least a year old.
Concentrating on supporting the moms in any way they can, and their proof is in faces just like this one.
99.8% infant survival rate.
I was 19 when I gave birth to my first.
That was around the time when she met Farmer, who became her support system and her doula for her next 2 births.
Everything from housing needs, employment, it was like a different form of love that I hadn't had in a long time.
As Ohio lawmakers and healthcare workers pledge to do everything they can to keep Ohio's most vulnerable citizens alive, Dr. Chisholm says it's also important to remember
We need to not blame the moms. We need to blame a system that doesn't always meet their needs,